Dr. Michael Heithaus, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Florida International University in North Miami, Florida. And thank you for spending a few minutes with your Congressman Carlos Curbelo as he came by earlier today, too.
Thank you. Chairman Davis, Ranking Member Del Bene, members of the committee, especially our Florida friends, Congressman Yoho and Congresswoman Graham. It's an honor to be here to discuss some of the innovations advanced at Florida International University aimed at enhancing agricultural science and research nationwide. FIU is Miami's only public research university and is the fourth largest university in the country, enrolling 55,000 students and conducting over $130 million of research every year. And we see FIU as a national resource for agricultural research in the USDA, who hired 50 of our grads last year. Together with the state's land-grant institution, University of Florida, and Miami-Dade County's agricultural office led by Charles LaPrade, FIU is helping address three major agricultural crises in our service area, whose ag industry employs over 20,000 people and produces more than $2.7 billion in economic impact each year for the county. So these risks to our subtropical and tropical crops and ornamentals include exotic pests and disease like citrus greening and laurel wilt that are being introduced into the U.S. at alarming rates. They've cost Miami-Dade County billions of dollars in treatment, eradication programs, and lost revenue. Local weather patterns and climate are shifting and is going to affect the crops we can grow and threaten food security. This is compounded with the water management challenges to ensure that we balance the needs of urban, agricultural, and natural systems. Finally, agriculture is an industry with an aging workforce. We have to find ways to bring in more young people and to diversify. I'd like to share some thoughts on the unique ability of our country's Hispanic-serving agricultural colleges and universities, or HSACUs, of which there are 80 countrywide, to accelerate research and better complement the extension and teaching of our land grants. In many ways, the collaboration and complementary roles played by FIU and UF are a metaphor for the future collaboration with HSACUs and what it should look like. As we see in Miami-Dade County, these agricultural challenges are too important to leave to a single institution. As a testament to FIU's efforts, it was one of the first universities in the nation to receive USDA's HSACU designation. And although FIU faculty, staff, and students are helping to address the challenges I mentioned previously, federal partnerships and competitive funding are critical to ensuring that we maximize our impact. I'd like to highlight 4 of our impact areas. First, we're helping to develop more resilient crops. Our researchers are working with collaborators to develop new crop varieties like chickpeas, lentils, and mangoes that are more resilient to changes in climate. The wild relatives of our domesticated crops are better able to survive variation in growing condition like droughts or too much rainfall. But using cutting-edge genetic techniques, we can incorporate that hardiness of the wild relatives of the crops while maintaining the benefits of the domestic varieties. We're also helping to combat invasive pests. The aggressive Asian red bay ambrosia beetle has Florida's multi-million-dollar avocado industry in limbo. The insect spreads laurel wilt, which is deadly to avocado trees. And our researchers, led by our provost, Dr. Ken Furton, have developed a unique detection program called Detector Canines that couples drone technology and canine scent detection. And this is a really important approach because it holds promise for detecting emerging diseases before they become so widespread that the cost of combating them just become crippling to an industry. We're also working with the University of Florida to build an agribusiness incubator that'll help generate high-tech solutions and add value to raw agricultural products that'll help overcome food waste challenges while stimulating further economic activity. Finally, we're training the next generation of farmers, particularly from underrepresented groups. The FIU Agroecology program with its partners has trained hundreds of students and developed a veteran and small farmer training program. So what's the future of our nation's Hispanic-serving institutions in agriculture? Congress and USDA have made important strides to engage with the greater Hispanic-serving community, and particularly the heavy lift by the National Institute on Food and Agriculture and several of its leaders like Director Ramaswamy and Drs. Qureshi and Lawrence. There are lots of examples with direct impact, but there are 2 thoughts on specific policy challenges. First, we have to build capacity at HSIs through the HSACU programs. Post-secondary Hispanic students are now enrolled mostly at HSIs, with over 60% of Hispanics nationwide at these institutions. Hispanics represent 50% of all farm laborers and supervisors, but only 3% of doctoral recipients in the biological, agricultural, and life sciences. So we're leaving a ton of talent untapped, and we have not funded any of the programs authorized in 2008 for the HSACU. Second, we need to incorporate the Hispanic-serving institutions into the land-grant ecosystem. As UF and FIU have proven, collaboration between a land grant and an HSI is a win for all involved. We need much more such collaborations around the country and ways to incentivize better collaboration. There's tremendous opportunity in the future, and FIU looks forward to working with Congress and the USDA to accelerate agricultural research, extension, and teaching. Thank you very much. I'll jump in coming from a somewhat unique position of being a non-land grant institution, and I think the answer is a mix. I think that having these large multi-institution grants are very beneficial, especially long-term as we're facing changing conditions, and we really need to be projecting what the needs are going to be 5 or 10 years from now rather than reacting to what worked best last year. And I think that the collaborative grants do allow us to bring expertise from multiple institutions and help catalyze that collaboration that I think would help bring in expertise from outside the traditional land grants while really teaming it up. But I think that you do still need those mix of the small, more targeted grants that don't require collaboration as well, because so many of these challenges are very local, and you don't want to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater on that. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the first thing is that, unfortunately, a lot of scientists like to put their head down, do the work, and get the satisfaction of knowing that they've helped the industry and helped solve a problem. And we need to be very intentional about how we market and communicate about these issues. I think that it's really important that we do this in South Florida. A lot of people don't know how important ag is even as an industry. I mean, they just think of beaches and tourists, but the ag industry is critical to the success of South Florida and is really important nationwide. So I think that we need to be very intentional and targeted in how we talk to not just the local agricultural community, but the wider consumer community about what we're doing. And as we build this agribusiness incubator with the University of Florida, one of the components that we're going to be working to train community members in and farmers that work there is in the marketing of their products. And, how do we talk about this specifically? And I'd say there are lots of successes in there. I mean, as you've heard, the return on investment in research is really high. So what we see in South Florida is a general need for greater investment in research. Also, I'd just kind of like to echo that comment that the Hispanic-serving agricultural colleges and universities have multiple programs that were authorized but haven't been funded. So funding those would certainly help us maximize our impact and add to what's going on in the land grant institutions. Well, I think that, at the base level, yes, funding this, and even if it has to be divided many ways, it would have an impact. A lot of our universities are very used to making very efficient use of funds, and so it would have a real impact. However, the designation level for what qualifies might be something that we need to create a new funding mechanism or multiple criteria so that the allocation of those funds is done in such a way that it will maximize its impact in terms of the areas where there's the greatest need. But there certainly is that need for capacity funding, and there are also some of the unintended consequences of this designation where we can't qualify for certain non-land grant funding unless we give up that designation. So I think that we do need to do some tweaking on it to make sure that these universities are able to access funding and that it's allocated in a mix of competitive grants and then capacity building funding.